never mix, but when they do, they quickly depart. Right? Because keeping and growing money is a different ballgame. It requires knowledge, it requires understanding. And then before you know it, you walk out the shop, you spend over 200,000.
Yo, what's up guys, it's Nqobile Tembane from Top Traders South Africa, and I'm bringing you guys another installment of Market Masters, where I sit down with industry players, prominent industry players who are prominent in the game, and we talk about all things trading or all things financial markets. And today I'm joined by an esteemed guest. I'm joined by Lonwabo Fololo. Hi sir, how are you?
Great, thanks. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much for coming out. Appreciate the time, just you coming out. And I think today's conversation is going to be very interesting, very different from what you guys are used to. I think today we're diving fully into the crypto space as well. Yeah, but before we get into that, obviously, I'd like to believe some of our people do know who you are, but obviously some of them abagwazi. So can you just give us a bit of background of who you are?
Sure. So, of course, the name is Lonwabo Fololo, born and bred in Port Elizabeth. I think came to Joburg for the first time in 2009. This was for an interview. And, so the reason why I actually ended up not staying in Joburg at the time is because, I come from the Eastern Cape. We only speak English and isiXhosa, and that's it, and Afrikaans, right? So yeah. I remember getting into a taxi. I was going for an interview in Pretoria, Centurion, yeah. And I asked for directions, and obviously I'm asking in English, assuming that, those guys don't understand isiXhosa. And then these guys answered me in Setswana. So I was like, you know what? I'm actually not going to stay here. Yeah. These guys are not hospitable. I don't want to go into tribalism, but I think Xhosa people are a lot more hospitable. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I grew up in PE. I studied construction management, only worked 18 months for a boss. I decided that it was not going to work for me because I looked at guys who were like 15 years in the industry. They were still complaining about money. And for me, the reason why I went to varsity to study, it was because I wanted to make money. So when I saw that these guys were actually not making money, in fact, my plan was to work for 5 years, but I ended up working for only 18 months due to the fact that I think I was blessed with a boss from hell who made my stay in that particular business, hard. Actually it drove me out. So I then left and went into the world of entrepreneurship. To think of it, I was actually bored even working because really? I was always looking for what's the next thing I can do to make money, because my salary, I knew before it comes, it's gone, because so I had a lot of things to do for it. And I had a lot of stuff to do. So at home, I'm the oldest. So I've got 3 siblings. And being the oldest, and my family or my parents are not educated. My mother was a domestic worker, so I had a lot of stuff to take care of at home. So hence my desire to quickly make money. So I then got into entrepreneurship. I started in construction, obviously because that's what I studied for. I realized the industry was not for me. Even back then, they didn't have the construction mafia that they have right now, but still it was sort of like, not the scene for me. Then I went into real estate. I worked for a company called Remax for 8 months. I saw that I was making quite a lot of money for these guys. I enjoyed what I was doing. And then I got a Rossen franchise. I started selling properties. I sold properties for about 6 years of my life before being introduced into Bitcoin in 2015. I didn't take it seriously at the time. And then only in 2016, late 2016, I took it seriously. 2017, I actually closed my real estate business to focus on the network marketing space, in the cryptocurrency space. And that changed my life.
Sure. Sorry to interrupt today's episode, but I need to tell you a few things about Octa today. So guys, it's really important to be with a broker that has great trading conditions, and Octa has transparent trading conditions from zero swaps to no commissions at all, which means more profits in your pockets for you. As well, fast deposits and withdrawals with various options. Your deposit funds will be there within just 1 to 2 minutes and get your profits in 25 minutes, right just when you need them. As well, guys, the minimum deposit at Octa is $50, but it's also $25 when you're using a Visa card. And guys, think about it. Now they provide a wide range of instruments, 150 plus stock assets, 30 plus crypto assets, 35 currency pairs, metals and indices for you guys to be able to trade. Also, we're giving you guys 100% deposit bonus when you use the code TOPTRADER. So guys, trading made clear with Octa. No, that's great. When did you make your first purchase of Bitcoin?
I think it was late 2016 or mid 2016.
And the price? Do you remember?
The price at the time, I think it was roughly just over 5,000 rands.
Sure.
The very first purchase.
Yeah.
But obviously at the time, I didn't buy to hold.
Oh.
I bought to actually put into a program.
Okay.
And this particular program turned out to be a scam. And believe it or not, I've seen quite a lot of those where I've personally lost money.
Okay.
So yeah, that's how I then started learning about Bitcoin. Why is it that all these guys are creating all these scams to get these Bitcoins? What is this thing about this Bitcoin? So I started then doing a deep dive late 2016 to early 2017. That's what caused me to actually close my real estate business, because I saw the potential of what Bitcoin actually can do.
Sure. Yeah, but crypto scams are actually like some of the most popular scams out there. It's how a lot of people actually lose a lot of money. I don't even think Forex scams, I think they zenza kancane compared to crypto scams.
I actually don't think so.
Really?
I think Forex scams are, let me put it to you this way.
Yeah.
When I got into the space, I was looking for a way to make money.
Okay.
So I didn't really care whether it was online, whether it was offline. I was just looking for a way to make money. And the first thing I got into, so I started with IFA, right? But I saw there wasn't money. I worked for over a year there. I really worked my butt off, but I couldn't really make money. The highest I've made was 5,500 rand in 1 month. So, and this was whilst running my own real estate business.
Konja IFA, what was it? Because I know my parents were actually involved with IFA as well.
So IFA was a network marketing division of Clientele Life. It's called Independent Field Advertiser.
Okay.
So we were promoting Clientele Life products, and you get paid commissions and stuff like that. You can build a network and all that.
Okay.
So I didn't really make money there. And then it was right at the time where Amabanoi, were coming into light, or I was being exposed to Amabanoi. Your Rich Society, your Helping Dubai, your Triple M, dare I say Pipcoin, and many others. So that's when I was like, it seems like there's quite a lot of money, And I know, whenever you're going to find something that is fake, you must always know that there's always something that is real. Fake does not exist unless there is something that is real. So that's when I started looking for different ways. So I then got introduced to one particular gentleman. I think you know him if I mention the name. He was interested in Bitcoin, right, at the time when I started. And he actually sat us down, and then he said, in fact, we drove from Port Elizabeth to Durban to attend a 3-day conference to learn about Forex.
Okay.
A very popular Forex trader was actually doing it. And in that 3 days, I learned this much. 0.
Really?
0.
How come?
He never taught anything. We were just told about him, what he has done and stuff like that. I remember there was like 3 or 4 guys who actually came on stage to speak.
Okay.
The only thing that I managed to do was to create an account. I think there was an old broker called ACM or something like that.
It's still in the times of ACM Gold.
Yes, ACM Gold. Yes.
Gee.
This was 2016, mid 2016. So I came back frustrated, that I didn't really learn anything. But obviously, this guy was very good with words. So we always thought, there's actually something that's going to come where he's going to teach us how Forex works. But then somebody else sat me down and said, look, most Forex traders, this is how they make money. And I'm not looking down on Forex. I've got friends who are making good money in Forex, but hear me what this guy says. He says most Forex traders actually don't make money trading. They actually make money with the teaching. They make money with being IBs, but not necessarily on the markets. For me, being the type of person that I am, I didn't want to make money in a way that's pretentious. So if I'm doing education, you must know that I'm actually teaching you, and that's how I make my money. If I'm doing this, I want you to know this is actually how I'm making my money. Right? So that's when I then, close the chapter because I was interested in Forex. I then close the chapter in Forex, and then I focus on network marketing.
And that is something I agree with you so much, because I think, and a lot of these guys have been called Forex marketers rather than Forex traders, which is probably the correct term for that. And I speak about it on the channel all the time. The thing is, I think a lot of guys are so ashamed to admit to the fact that, hey, we actually make our bread from course money. And they don't want to go around telling people that. Now they go around pretending, faking, and saying that I made this from the charts, whereas it's not from the charts. I mean, I know a guy, it was a few months ago, I think sometime last year, there's a particular broker, they have influencers, and I know this guy, he pretends to be a trader, but he's an influencer in actual fact. So I know on the day that the broker pays the influencers, so on that very particular day, sharp, he went and he posted that screenshot, making it seem like it was Forex profits, and I saw that price, I saw that amount. I'm like, Mark, I know. Yeah. So it's very sad though that guys actually come out. Whereas I think the industry would be so much better if people were just so straightforward and said, no, I'm a teacher, I'm a Forex teacher, I'm a Forex mentor, and that's where I make my money. And not to have to hide behind and say, nah, we make our money from the charts. Whereas if you put them in front of a chart right now, many of them. But we're not here to talk about that. Yeah, you've got a quote though that you've made before. I hope it's yours. Making money is action, keeping money is behavior, growing money is knowledge. Yeah, can you break that down for us a bit?
I think making money is actually the easiest. Right? Because, I mean, I can, DJ Spoo demonstrates this, quite easily. Just going on the street and shouting more fire, and people buy. If you've got the energy and the courage for that, it's easy to make money. You can sell anything to make money, literally. You just need to be, smart about it. For example, I'll just give you one example. So we see these guys begging on the robots, right? Or some are selling on the robots. In fact, there is this particular group of guys. They really annoy me, to be honest. So they want to clean your window, even if it's clean, right? Now, what annoys you about them, it's not the fact that they want to clean your window. It's how they look, right? If those guys were dressed properly, and even, just going to Pep or whatever and just buy a uniform, something that's going to be, that they're all going to wear. And then you have someone who stands maybe a few meters in front of them with a board and say, support us, we want to clean your windows, but they're all looking proper. I'm telling you right now, a lot more people would want those guys to clean their windows even though they're clean. You understand? So making money is easy. You just need to be creative about it, right? And have the courage. That's all. But then growing money, it actually is a different ball game, right? Because you can make money, but in terms of growing money, so I think there is a reason why this show called I Blew It is one of the biggest shows. Because it's simply because if somebody gives you R1 million, right? Yeah, you are a millionaire, right? But then if you're not a millionaire here, it's only a matter of time that you're going to lose that money. So they say a fool and money never mix, but when they do, they quickly depart, right? Because, keeping and growing money is a different ballgame. It requires knowledge, it requires understanding, it requires patience, right? And I think for a lot of people, especially when you don't come from money, you always want to, because you went so long without, now when you have it, you want to show everybody that, hey, I have arrived, look at me, I'm wearing Louis, I'm driving this, I'm doing that, As a result, you don't understand the long-term cost implications of actually having that kind of lifestyle. So I think that's where a lot of young guys, and I'm saying this because I've been through the process myself, where I've made lots of money. And then what do they do? I bought out of control, traveling throughout the world, spending money. So So it really requires knowledge and understanding and patience for you to be able to actually grow money.
Sure.
And I think everybody just focuses on one thing, and that is making money.
Yeah.
I just want to make money.
Yeah.
But then the question is, what are you going to do when you've made the money? So that is why when we teach people about wealth creation, we always talk about your why. What's your why? What's the big thing? What's your reason for wanting to make money? Because if you have that, at the back of your mind, then it's easy for you to behave accordingly, when you actually start to make the money, So, yeah, man.
Yeah, because you keeping money is behavior, and I like that, and I like you're speaking towards a lot of people's behavior. People don't know how to act once the money is there, which is so true, and I like what you say. So can you just give us some instances where you feel like, and this is for the sake of the people right there, the aspiring people who aspire to have money as well, to be in the position where you're at right now, just to let them know about a point in time where you felt like, you really wasted a period of your life because you didn't know how to handle money.
So, look, it's a bit of a tricky one, right? Because we might say that making money and then spending it on frivolous activities, it's one thing. So let me put this: I don't drink, I don't smoke, So when I say I blew money, I'm talking about, investing on experiences.
Okay.
I might say I blew it. It's actually not having blown it.
Okay.
So I'll give you one example. I think for like 3 years or so, every December, I would I told you that my mother was a domestic worker, right? She never flew a plane until I put her on a plane.
Yeah.
Never been in a 5-star hotel until I put her in a 5-star hotel. So I did this for my entire family and my siblings, right? So we traveled to Cape Town 1 year, the next year Durban, the next year Joburg, right? Even though when I look back, because I'm earning my money in Bitcoin, right? I might say that I actually blew money because Bitcoin has appreciated in value, but those experiences, are invaluable.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true.
So if you're investing in experiences like that, I think it can be forgiven.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm with it. I agree with what you're doing. Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of things like clothes, I could have been a little bit more circumspect when it comes to that. I mean, we would go for a conference, let's say Cape Town, right? If I happen to have forgotten a jacket, whatever, like, it's no biggie. I'm just going to buy one in Cape Town. So it's only things like that. And when I buy one, I'm not going to buy one from, I'm not going to mention shop names, but, you want to make sure that you're buying something proper. So there was a lot of unplanned expenditures. For example, we'd go into LV, just check what's there, and then we find that there's actually something that's new. And then before you know it, you walk out the shop, you spend over 200,000. You understand? You didn't plan that, but because you had the money liquid, you could literally do that, right?
Sure.
So I remember we were in New York with my friend. We're in New York, right? So it's always been a dream of ours to travel the world, right? So again, that's another experience that I wouldn't say it's actually wasting money, but then it's also what you do when you get there, right?
Okay.
So we would make sure that we're in New York. Okay, it's fine. Let's ball a little bit, right? So I know what it's like to buy a Gucci in South Africa, in Sandton or Cape Town. Let me see what it's like to buy a Gucci in New York. I mean, it sounds like good for marketing and stuff like that. Walking out of a Gucci store in New York, right? And you take all those pictures. As you walk down, you see the Trump Tower, and you're standing outside the Trump Tower, with Gucci this side, Louis Vuitton this side. So it's only things like that. At the time, it felt good.
Okay.
It actually validated, all the stuff that you went through, because as much as I say making money is easy, it is, yes, but there's a lot that you actually have to go through in order for you to make money, right? For example, myself, I'm a professional, right? I studied construction management, quantity surveying. So everybody I started with who knew how smart I was in class, they were like, what is this guy doing? He's now going to do construction. Now he's actually selling properties. Now, property can be forgiven at least, but now he's actually doing Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin? Is this not a scam? What's wrong with this guy? So I had a lot of those experiences. So when you finally make it, because everybody, you've encountered quite a lot of no's in the process, So that's why sometimes, we do want to spend money a little bit so that you can feel better. You can say, it's almost like you're patting yourself in the back, but you can actually overdo it. So for me, I would definitely say when my accountant, because I wouldn't really notice. You not notice money is coming in, you're spending. Money is coming in, you're spending. I remember when I bought a car for my wife, a Porsche Macan, right? So I was saying jokingly to someone, that I just bought it's actually this much, and don't worry, next month I'm making that, in 1 month, so it's no biggie. But looking back, and at those experiences, my accountant says, you bought another car without even telling me, because maybe you would have advised otherwise, whatever the case is, right? The crux of the matter or the wake-up point was when my accountant actually said, do you know you've actually spent this amount of money on clothes? It was a big amount. Yeah. And then he says, I'm trying to get a write-off, for you for those clothes. And I'm going to have to write a motivational letter and say you actually, you do presentations. These are the kind of clothes that you need for you to actually do presentation and stuff like that. So that was like when the penny dropped. Like, hey, dude, you're boiling out of control here. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, take notes, guys. Yeah, anyway, so I want to go back to when you said you bought Bitcoin at around 5,000. You said 5,000 Rand, right? Yeah, so what happens after that? How does the journey go? Because I think at some point, obviously, you were chasing the knowledge right now. So after you got scammed, obviously, you had to go back. And why didn't you give up on the crypto thing after you got scammed?
Sure. So that is an interesting question. So what happened was, the first time I heard about Bitcoin, right, a friend of mine invited me to a conference. It was called the Wealth Conference. He knows me, I like money, right? So we go to this conference, they talk about Forex, they talk about Bitcoin, they talk about gold, they talk about real estate. And then I'm like, I know real estate, I've been studying it for the last few years. Forex, I'm not really interested. Bitcoin, I'm actually interested. The funny thing about me being interested in Bitcoin is the fact that, so we were in this conference and it was obviously in town, in Port Elizabeth. There was probably a handful of black people. And then the guy who was the speaker there, sort of asked a question. So how many of you have actually heard about Bitcoin? A few hands were raised, right? And I looked back and I was like, there's quite a few black hands that is actually going up. I'm like, I think of myself to be very curious when it comes to money. Why do these black guys know about Bitcoin and I don't? I need to check what this Bitcoin is about. And then he asked one more question. He says, who actually has Bitcoin? And a few hands went up. When I looked back and I saw there was quite a few black hands going up.
Fewer than the ones who've bought.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I was like, what? There's black people who know what Bitcoin is, who own Bitcoin. I need to check what this Bitcoin is. And then the one thing that stood in my way was they said, so they just gave us like a brief introduction, not really in depth of, it's new money, it appreciates in value. This year it was this much and all of that and all of that. And I think those guys are actually learning at the very same time.
Okay.
And then they said they're actually going to do a conference in Cape Town, Joburg and Durban where they will teach about Bitcoin. And the cost was 5,000 Rand to attend the course. And I was like, I need to travel. I need to book a bus flights at the time, it was like something that's out of my league. So I need to book a bus. I need to actually find accommodation. It was going to be too much. At the time, I didn't have the money. So I ended up having to try and Google this thing on my own. At the time, there wasn't information on Google. It was only scams, right? So that is why the first thing I saw was like, you can actually make so much money on Bitcoin. I think it was like 10,000%, something crazy like that. And that's when I went and bought Bitcoin on my own accord and I invested into this thing. And a few days later, it actually vanished, right? And I did put in some decent money there. But long story short was I then focused on gold because we were looking at taking, what we could from what those guys were offering. So we looked at the gold business. And in trying, for me to be able to sell something, I need to truly understand it. Why? Because I only sell with conviction, right? If I don't have conviction about something, I'm not going to sell it to you. If I won't buy it, or if I won't sell it to my mother or to my family member, why would I sell it to you? That's the kind of person that I am. So I then had to study why gold. in studying why gold, I got to learn about fractional reserve banking system, how the money actually gets created than what people know. So it was like an eye opener for me. Now, put that one side. After I got scammed, and I remember I then got into Pipcoin. So the thing about Pipcoin, the owner and the founder of Pipcoin are actually talking about Bitcoin. So I was like, okay, I was late on Bitcoin, so maybe this is the next thing, because it was promoted as such, right?
Yeah.
It's the next cryptocurrency owned by Africa and stuff like that. So even when I got involved in Pipcoin, I actually had to rationalize as to why Pipcoin. And then I said, okay, you missed out on Bitcoin, so maybe this is it, right? But then a few months down the line, I remember posting on social media about this thing, and the lady who then became a mentor, she was like, "Are you really sure this is what you think it is? Because I don't think it is." She sort of like kept on, poking and asking questions. And the thing about, hearing somebody say something, you don't have to like what they say. You can even, reply in a way that, for example, I had to say to her, well, who do you think you are? Why, do you think you're the crypto queen and stuff like that? And when I saw on her social media profile, there wasn't anything like, she didn't look like a person who has money. Okay. Let's put it that way. So I sort of like, in hindsight, I undermined her, right? So, but then because of these things, it sort of like lingered at the back of my mind. What if she's right? And we started asking questions. I think it was when there was a big conference here in Gallagher Estate. I mean, we drove all the way from P to Gallagher Estate, 10,000 people. This guy came in with a chopper. There's something. But then we sort of like befriended some of the ladies who were working for him. And we got a few, some information about how this thing actually does work. And they had some complaints, let's put it that way. Okay. So I was like, okay.
He's still referring to Pipcoin now?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
So we just know each other, we greet, we're cool. It's not like we,
Okay.
Yeah. So when I didn't realize that it was not what I thought it was.
Okay.
And then I walked away. But because we already started to build a following regarding this particular thing, so we then had to go on social media and say, guys, we're actually not involved with this thing. And we didn't even state our reasons why. And of course, people called us haters and all of that, right? So, but that is fine. So, but what I'm trying to say is that after that whole experience, I was like, okay, let me rather study what Bitcoin is. Because after that meeting in Gallagher, I met up with the guy. I was actually supposed to meet with this lady because I was in PE. It was the only time I came to Joburg, but she had a 2-month-old baby, so she couldn't see me. She actually sent one guy to see us and to tell us what they're doing. So this guy told us what they're doing. I was like, okay, this sounds interesting. Went back to PE quite excited. We're excited, we're sad at the same time, because what we were promoting for the last maybe 2 months or so, we realized it was not what it was. It was not going to take us where we thought it was going to take us. But we were excited because now we're starting a new journey. Now, the good thing about having partnered with this particular lady is that she was so much big on education. What is Bitcoin? Why does it exist? What problem is it here to solve? How well is it doing in solving that particular problem? How big is that particular problem? So as I learned all of those things, so the information I then had about gold and why gold, the fact that, it's limited in quantity, you cannot, if you take out 1 kilogram of gold from the ground, there's no way for you to increase it to 20 kilograms, So things like that, so I understood that, okay, this is God money, this is people's money. So I understand the good qualities of money and how Bitcoin was, ticked all the boxes, and there is no form of currency in the history of mankind that has actually ticked all the boxes of good qualities of money. Only Bitcoin did. So, and the more I actually delved into this, the more I got fascinated. That is why January 2017, I closed my real estate business. I was like, you know what, this is what I'm actually gonna do.
Yeah.
Now, here's one last thing that actually sort of like put the nail in the coffin in terms of any doubt of what Bitcoin was going to do in the future. So I was introduced into a website called coindesk.com. This particular website had a page of which it's there, but a lot of people didn't actually look at this. It was a page for venture capitalists. In this page, they actually showed Bitcoin startups and who actually invested into this particular startup. So in this page, I saw banks. They were publicly saying Bitcoin is a scam. This thing is like, it's like red poison, whatever.
But this is back in 2017.
This is back in 2017. In fact, one of the big financial institutions in South Africa called Old Mutual started investing as early as 2017 in Bitcoin. A lot of people still don't know that even today.
That's a shocker.
So I remember presenting to one guy who was working for Old Mutual. I said, your competition is actually investing into Bitcoin. This guy was sitting behind the desk, and as I was talking, I didn't know he was actually Googling what I was saying. And then he found that to actually be true, that actually Old Mutual started investing back in 2017. So when I saw banks like BBVA Bank, Citibank, JB Morgan, all these big banks globally, Standard Chartered, all of them, including what's this bank that used to own Absa? Barclays, including Barclays. So all these banks were silently investing into Bitcoin startups. I was like, you know what? We are actually onto something. So, and then I was like, this is it. This is actually good. So the more I understood how money flows, how money gets created, the more I understood why Bitcoin and why it was created right at the height of the global financial crisis, which was caused by the banking system.
Sure. That's information that a lot of people, I'm actually quite shocked. But I like the fact that we're in 2017 now, because we know 2017 was quite a big year for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Probably, and I can imagine, can you give us a bit of like insight on your 2017? Because I can imagine from January all the way to December, it must have been the craziest hype ever, up and downs.
That's a very interesting question. So 2017, remember, that is when I closed my real estate business and we're focusing on Bitcoin. My business partner, he was into consulting. He then also, quit his business to actually focus on Bitcoin. At the time, I was very broke. I had 2 children. My daughter must have been like a few months old. My son already started crèche. What is it called? Pre-primary. Yeah. So, and I was falling behind on my rent, falling behind on school fees and stuff like that. So times were not the most favorable. Just a few months back, I almost got my car repossessed. So I was in a bad space. So for me to quit my real estate business that I was running for the last 6-7 years, it was quite a gamble. So, but I knew what I was doing, right? So it had to work, right? So when we started the year, I remember 2016 in December, there's a lady, she's a prominent trader right now. She's making all sorts of money in cryptocurrency. She was part of my team. So I told her to buy 1 Bitcoin. I told her to buy 1 Bitcoin. Bitcoin was 9,000 Rand at the time. It went to 16,000 Rand. And then the following year, January, it went down to like 9,000. She was panicking. Do I sell this Bitcoin? I'm saying, don't sell that Bitcoin. Keep that Bitcoin. And I think eventually she sold because she was afraid. That was at the beginning of the year. Bitcoin was 7,000 Rand. So we go in full time. We travel throughout the country. Every cent we're making, we're investing into traveling, going and teaching people. We started something called the 90-day game plan. And then, as I said, we were actually quite broke. Now, as the hype for Bitcoin actually grew, it actually made us popular as well, and our business model popular as well. We then started to make money, I think by the end of 2017, I made over 3.6 million in that particular year, having started with like literally nothing.
But is this also including the Bitcoin? Were you holding Bitcoin at the time? Does this include that as well? Is this other sources of income?
Okay, so this is how I made money in Bitcoin. So I was just like you are an affiliate for a broker, I was an affiliate for a company that was mining Bitcoins.
Okay.
So we were educating people what is Bitcoin, why it exists, what problems it resolves, why you should hold Bitcoin. We were educating people about the 3 different ways of actually acquiring Bitcoin. You could actually be a trader, trading cryptocurrency. You can buy and hold, or you can mine, right? So we explain to people what is mining, how do Bitcoin comes into existence, and all of that. So people will do all 3. Some will do 1, some will do 2, whatever the case. It really didn't matter. But here's an interesting thing. A lot of people might not even know. Every seminar we did, especially when we started making money, we would get people to download the Luno app, and then we'll do like a quiz at the end and see who gets the most answers. And we would give people Bitcoins for free, for 50 Rand, 100 Rand, 200 Rand, 300 Rand.
Wait, you're giving Bitcoins?
Yes, for free. Let me tell you where the inspiration come from.
Sure.
There's a guy in the States. He used to stay in the States. His name is Roger Ver. He used to be called Bitcoin Jesus.
Okay.
So what this guy did was he discovered Bitcoin as early as 2011. He bought like hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin. So for him, he understood the power of Bitcoin in terms of disrupting the status quo in terms of governments and money and stuff like that. If you look many years ago, there was a separation, and this was a revolution, a separation of state and church. And this guy was like, you know what? We have come to a time now where we need to separate state and money. Just like many years ago, we had the separation of church and state. Because he saw that how governments were abusing their ability to create money and stuff that and all of that. So for him, it was a just cause. It was not just about making money. It was actually never about making money. It was a just cause. So what this guy did, he bought thousands of Bitcoins. So he had like a shop where he was selling second-hand computer parts. He put billboards all over the States saying this particular company, which is his company, we accept Bitcoin as a form of payment. Of course, now that creates curiosity. What is Bitcoin, right? So he paid for radio ads. He had nothing for people to join or anything like that, right? So there wasn't any direct money coming to him. Okay. So he did all of this, and he actually did seminars, was giving people Bitcoins for free, And the question people often ask us was, why would you do that, right? If you understand that there will only be 21 million Bitcoins to ever exist, you hold a bag of those Bitcoins, you understand that the only thing that actually separating people from wanting this Bitcoin is knowledge. So the more people you educate about Bitcoin, the more people want Bitcoin. The more people want Bitcoin, the more demand for Bitcoin. The more demand for Bitcoin, it means the value of Bitcoin then appreciates over time. So that's why he did what he did. So we actually did the very same thing, where we were educating people why Bitcoin, and then we're giving Bitcoin to people for free for having attended, because it's one thing to hear about Bitcoin, it's one thing to experience Bitcoin. If you have Bitcoin sitting in your wallet, in a Bitcoin wallet, and it's sitting at 50 rands, and all of a sudden it's now 30 rand. You have all these emotions, right? Why is it going down? It gets you to want to understand why is it doing this, And when it goes up, it goes to 70, it goes to 100 rand. It gets you all emotional, and your emotion actually drives you to want to learn. So why is this thing doing what it's doing? How high can it go and stuff like that? So that's why we did what we did. But our business model was we were affiliates, but in the process of us being affiliates, we're getting paid in Bitcoin. So you can imagine getting paid in a currency that's appreciated in value. So it was like a cheat code for wealth. I was saying to the guys that cryptocurrency is one of the biggest wealth cheat codes ever, because you're getting paid in a currency, or you're earning a currency that's going to appreciate in value. You look at all other fiat currency, US dollar, British pound, Chinese yen, South African rand. What does it do? You earn it, right? You've worked for it, and what's going to happen? It actually loses buying power over time. You're actually working backwards without you knowing. So that is why Bitcoin. So for me, we often say that we came to this space because we wanted to make money. We had things to take care of, but we stayed in the space because we felt that we were doing the Lord's work, literally. I used to say to myself that I'm actually doing the Lord's work because I'm waking people up, to say that the system that you so eloquently defend, you love, it's actually rigged against you, right? And this is one of the alternatives that you can look at.
Sure. Yeah. So 2017, but before we continue 2017, you said something about there being only a limited amount of Bitcoins, which is something I've heard before. Speaking obviously, and then obviously there's like things like Bitcoin halvings and whatnot. So when Bitcoin started, how many did they make in total?
Interesting. So 3rd of January 2009, when the network of Bitcoin went live, there was 0 Bitcoins. 10 minutes later, a first block of Bitcoins was mined, which was 50 new Bitcoins.
50.
So, and then 10 minutes later, another 50 new Bitcoins were mined. So every 10 minutes for the first 3.5 years, which is the halving, there was 50 new Bitcoins mined. And then 3.5 years later, when we get to the halving event, this is all pre-coded in the code of Bitcoin. Nobody sits there and say, okay, it's time. Let's now reduce the supply of Bitcoins. No, it's automatically like that. So, and then in the halving event, it went from 50 new Bitcoins to 25 new Bitcoins. What does that do? It means that the supply of Bitcoin is actually now going down.
Okay.
What?
So that, sorry, I'm just trying to understand this all for myself. So you're basically saying that obviously every 10 minutes was 50 Bitcoins that were being mined. So not that they going out of circulation, but the amount of Bitcoin that you can mine is kind of just decreases. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes. So it's all pre-coded in such a way that there will only be 21 million Bitcoins. But practically, there isn't 21 million Bitcoins right now. But we all know that according to the code of Bitcoin, the final number will be 21 million Bitcoins. And that is cast in stone. Nobody can change that, unless they fork Bitcoin and create something else, which is not going to be Bitcoin, right? So, but then in practice, right now, I think we've got like maybe 19 million Bitcoins in circulation, but every 10 minutes, there's X amount of Bitcoins that are coming out into circulation through mining. Okay. So it started as 50, then 25, then 12.5. It's now 6.25. And in the next few months, it's going to drop from 6.25 to actually 3.75. So it's going to keep on dropping every 3.5 years up until it gets to 0.00 something of a Bitcoin.
And then what happens then?
Then what happens then is that, by the way, by the time we get to 21 million Bitcoins, it will only happen by the year 2140, 210. Okay, that's over 100 years from now. Yeah, right? So it's quite far off. Yeah. But even post that, what's going to happen is that miners who are being paid to secure the network, to validate the network, and to verify transactions, right? That's why they're getting these new Bitcoins. That's the work that they do with their computing power, with their networks and stuff like that. So they will be getting paid right now, then via transaction fees. Okay. So in other words, when you transact, just like when you transact with Visa, there is a small transaction fee of which Visa takes, your bank takes, right? So it's going to be the same thing with Bitcoin. So if I'm buying this water, buying with Bitcoin, whichever miner validates that particular batch of transactions, they will then get, all the transaction fees for that particular batch.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how miners will get paid.
Sure. Gee, this is all interesting. It's like future money, right? Literally is future money, though. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, so we're in 2017 right now. By the end of 2017, obviously we know December hits. Yeah. The highs, Bitcoin hits 19,000 US. Was it 19,000? 19,000 US, correct?
Yeah, I think on some exchanges it did reach over 20,000.
Oh, some exchange. Yeah. Okay, yeah, around there, 20,000, around there. Obviously, I can imagine life right now is good. Or what happens?
So obviously life is good, but here's the thing, right? So it's one thing to buy Bitcoin. It's one thing to earn Bitcoin.
Okay.
Right. So if you were to choose, obviously, if you can't earn Bitcoin, rather buy Bitcoin, but then hold for long term.
Okay.
But what I do advocate for is that understand why, because a lot of people actually in 2017, like every Tom, Dick, and Harry wanted Bitcoin. Why? Because it was simply going up. People didn't even know why it's going up, right? So, and then 2017, it reached the highest point, which was 300,000 Rand in South Africa. Okay. The following year, it then started falling, right? I remember the lowest point was 38,000 Rands. I was in Durban. I phoned a friend of mine in PE. This guy had already invested quite a decent amount of money into mining. I was like, dude, this is the best time for you to buy. Not mining. I'm talking about you buying and holding Bitcoin, right? He had like 400,000 he wanted to put in. I said, don't put it into mining. Buy Bitcoins and hold these Bitcoins. This guy is like, no, man. Why would I encourage him to go and do something where I will personally not benefit? Because I wasn't going to benefit. Okay. But if he invest into the mining, I was going to get paid commission, right? So why would I do that, right? And then he says, no, I'm going to wait for it to go down a little bit. And then it went to 75,000 Rand in the next few weeks. He still didn't buy. I'm sure even today he still regrets. Because Bitcoin today is over 800,000 Rands, right? And he didn't buy at 38,000 when I literally begged him to buy at 38,000. So for me, because of the fact that, yes, it was going down. In fact, in 2018, I made more money than I made in 2017.
When it went down?
After it went down.
Sure.
Because of the fact that I'm earning leveraged income. That's what we call in network marketing is leveraged income. So even though it has gone down, but people now understand why it has gone down. Some people understand why it has gone down and understand that they want to position themselves so that when it actually goes up again, they actually hold a few of these Bitcoins. So that is why our business kept on growing even though the price of Bitcoin was going down, because we led with education, right? We led with education, not necessarily hype, not necessarily speculation, but real education. So that is why people actually kept on wanting to do business with us, because they understood that, this thing is actually going to go up again at some point.
Yeah, sure. So obviously Bitcoin, January it goes down, and 2018, and then obviously we get the new high April 2021, pushing that new high right now. I can imagine how things are becoming so much better even after, but I'm pretty sure you were getting a lot of calls from a lot of people during the time, especially 2018, when people were like, what's going on with the Bitcoin?
Yeah.
What was your response to that?
So my response to that was, would you rather want to buy it expensive at 300,000, or would you rather buy it low and then wait for it to appreciate, over time? So because at that time, I mean, as I said, the whole year of 2017, it was not just us making money, but we were also learning as we were teaching, or learning as we were teaching. So we understood that this was the first half, or I think it was like the third halving cycle.
Okay.
There's a lot more halving cycles to come, and there's a lot more adoption to come. At the time, we're starting to hear news that actually, because 2016, we were thinking, will governments ban this? This is, pseudo-anonymous money. It's not really anonymous. Will governments ban it? But then we started seeing countries like Japan, adopting Bitcoin as legal tender. Germany came in, adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. So we knew that this thing was actually going to go up over time. If it wasn't just for the halving cycle, it was actually going to be caused by institutional interest coming into Bitcoin and actually buying Bitcoin. So and so that's what we were doing, just educating people to understand that it's actually the perfect time now to buy. In fact, even now, people saying, it's going up and everybody wants to FOMO in. I'm like, you don't want to FOMO in, right? I get a lot of calls even today. Which coin should I buy? One of I've never met this guy. I consider him to be my mentor, okay. Robert Kiyosaki. So Robert Kiyosaki, when he's asked, where should I invest my money? He says, you only invest your money where you are, in the asset you're willing to study. Don't invest your money into something you're not willing to study, right? If you're willing to learn what Bitcoin is, then you can put your money. If you're not willing, you just want to put money and hope and pray, then don't put money in Bitcoin. Because when it goes down, you are actually going to panic and sell, and you're going to make a loss. And then what are you going to say? I know it's Fololo who told me to buy Bitcoins, right? But you actually did not understand why. So I've always been saying, I actually I recorded a video, I think 2 years ago. I actually reposted it today, where I'm saying a lot of people are leaving money on the table. And what do I mean by this? I'm saying people who are professionals, doctors, lawyers, I don't care what you do, right? Take at least 30 minutes of your time, each day. Learn about this new form of money called cryptocurrency. The governor of the Reserve Bank of South Africa, Mr. Lesetja Kganyago, many years ago, he says we are faced with two choices when it comes to cryptocurrencies. We can either ignore it, or we can actually engage with it. We can only ignore it at our own peril. This is the governor of the Reserve Bank. Who else are you going to listen to? If you're not going to listen to me, listen to that guy. He says we can only ignore cryptocurrencies at our own peril. And I like the fact that he also even spoke about the history of money. Did you know that at some point banks used to create their own money before there was a rand? Standard Bank used to have their own currency. Okay. Other bank will have their own currency.
Sure.
The South African Reserve Bank, I think, only came into being, around the 1920s. But before that, every bank had their own currency. So he was talking about the history of money and then the future of money, implying that cryptocurrencies are definitely the future of money.
Yeah, sure. I think while I was doing research for this interview, I saw something about adoption. Because you just mentioned adoption right now. Obviously, how things have adopted over the years. And when they putting Bitcoin against social media, the internet, airplanes, and all those things that obviously we've adopted over time, they show that it's still at its very early stages. It's very young
Yes.
Right now,
Yes.
Bitcoin is extremely young
Yes.
on the adoption scale.
Yes.
And I found it to be really profound. I was just like, so actually right now, and I don't want to get into this now, but I'll just get into this now. Obviously, with currently right now at the time of recording this, I don't know when it's going to come out, but at the time of recording this, right now we're having the Bitcoin ETF right now, the decision, I think the SEC, correct? Yeah, so can you just explain a bit more about that? Yeah, and then we'll get back to the other stories later after that.
So maybe before I get into that,
okay,
if I was young, okay, let me dare say, if I was your age, I would actually stop everything I'm doing, and I'll focus on crypto. Because I'm not just talking about buying crypto, trading crypto. I'm talking about finding a way of how to be an entrepreneur in crypto. Think about it this way. There is money in money, always.
Okay.
Right? And there is more money in new money. So BlackRock, talking about the ETFs, is one of the biggest funds in the world, right? They control most of the assets in the world, right? You talk about any major company in the world, they actually have a stake in it, right? So they understand where this thing is actually going. That is why they've actually filed for an ETF, right? And it's not only BlackRock. In fact, a few years ago, Fidelity Investments is one of the companies that have actually filed for the ETF. The chairperson of Fidelity, I can't remember the name, but it was a lady. She said something staggering. She said, by the year 2038, whether this is right or wrong, it's neither here nor there, but the fact that she said it, she said by the year 2038, Bitcoin could be the global reserve currency. She says when that happens, Bitcoin will be worth at least $1 billion for one Bitcoin.
Sure.
So when you look at one Bitcoin has got 8 decimals, right? Okay. So you have one Bitcoin, you've got what we call Satoshis. So I can buy this water even if it's 20 Rand and I've got one full Bitcoin, I can still pay using Bitcoin. So I'll spend 0.00 something off a Bitcoin to get this particular, it's called a Satoshi. Now, one of my mentors used to say that in the future, Bitcoin will be for rich people, Satoshis will be for ordinary people. So as I said earlier, today, crypto and Bitcoin is the biggest cheat code for wealth creation ever in the history of mankind. If you look at the gold rush, back in the late 1800s, how many people got involved? Which kind of people got involved? People who were already rich at the time. Bitcoin is the only place where ordinary people have got an opportunity to forerun these big financial institutions. What do I mean by that? I got into Bitcoin before BlackRock.
Okay.
That's what I mean. As ordinary as I am.
Yeah.
I got into Bitcoin before BlackRock, before Fidelity, before Rand Merchant Bank, which used to own Luno, by the way, right? Maybe they still do. I don't know. So it's a big opportunity. But let's come to the ETF that you're asking about.
Yeah.
So all these big financial institutions are creating some sort of a derivative of Bitcoin, which will allow people to invest into Bitcoin without necessarily owning Bitcoin and actually taking custody of Bitcoin. So they'll buy like what they call paper assets, right? Okay. It's like you are buying into a real estate unit trust. You actually don't own any piece of real estate. There is no title deed, but you actually own a piece of that, through a piece of paper, if that makes sense. So a Bitcoin ETF is something like that, where these guys have to buy these Bitcoins, let's say 1,000 Bitcoins, 100 Bitcoins, whatever number of Bitcoins or to whatever value. But then for them to be able to sell this ETF for people to actually invest, or other funds, because these are funds of funds, right? So other funds who actually want to get exposure into the growth of Bitcoin can actually do so without necessarily buying the actual Bitcoins. But for them to create this derivative, they need to actually own the real Bitcoins.
Yeah.
So the reason why there's all this hype around it, one, is because it means that Bitcoin is now one of the world's newest asset classes. That's number one. Number two, it also means that it's getting a stamp of approval by some of the biggest financial institutions in the world, right? And then number three, it simply means that there's going to be a lot of liquidity now coming into Bitcoin because these guys have to buy Bitcoins. Remember, the key thing here that Satoshi gave us is that there will only be 21 million Bitcoins. Out of that 21 million Bitcoins, they estimate that over 4 million is lost forever. Because people were mining Bitcoin, they lost their hard drives because, Bitcoin has been crashing 90% of the value so many times in the past. and some people forgot about it. They went on with their life and so forth. And when this thing started growing, they don't even have the servers where they actually held this particular Bitcoin.
Sure.
I mean, many stories like that where people lost, tons and tons of Bitcoins, which today are worth billions of dollars. So this ETF is now driving adoption in the sense that it now, if all these big financial institutions in the world are actually getting involved at that particular level, it means all the other smaller ones, your Sanlam, your Old Mutual, and all these other guys will have to then, create some sort of a product that allows their customers to get into Bitcoin, right? Or to invest into Bitcoin, right? So it's a huge deal. But as a Bitcoin maximalist and evangelist over the last few years, we did not need that for Bitcoin to be real. We did not need that for Bitcoin to work. Bitcoin has got its own internal economic structure, whether those guys come in or not. So Bitcoin went from what? 1 rand 40 cents in 2010 to now, actually we did reach over 1 million at some point. I think it was 2021.
Yeah, around that period. That's
so
correct.
we did reach 1 million without any institutions involved. You understand? It was just simply the masses realizing that we need an alternative, and Bitcoin is that alternative, right? So, but it's big in the sense that it means now every other institutions will follow suit.
Yeah. When gold, the gold ETF was, when the SEC obviously approved the gold ETF, I think it was 2003-4, around that period. After that, we saw the rise of gold go all the way up, and it never went down again. So are we expecting the same thing to happen with Bitcoin?
So think about it this way. In the UK, this was like 3 years ago, they did a survey with all the millennials, and they said, if you had money, right? They did a survey like with many people, young people, and that if you had money, and would you rather invest your money into gold, being it's the old, established, it's safe, or would you rather invest your money into Bitcoin? 72% of those guys said we'd rather invest into Bitcoins. About 74% actually agreed that they actually don't know much about Bitcoin, but that's where they would actually invest. So imagine those guys learning about Bitcoin and wanting to invest in Bitcoins. So all the old guys who are now, for lack of a better word, they're dying off. The new guys don't want to hold gold. It has so many limitations. I want to be a global citizen, right? I'm in South Africa, but I want to be able to go and spend 6 months in New York if I want to. I want to go and be able to spend, whatever number of time, in Europe if I want to. If my kids want to go and study in Australia, they should be able to do so. So young people, more and more young people are wanting to be global citizens. As a global citizen, where am I going to keep my gold? Do you understand? Because it's physical, right? I cannot go through OR Tambo with gold worth R1 million. It's a problem, right? I need to do all sorts of declarations and stuff like that. But where is Bitcoin, right? So if I'm holding Bitcoin in my wallet, and my wallet is a non-custodial wallet, where is this Bitcoin? Is it in South Africa? Is it in Nigeria? Where is it? You understand? So Bitcoin then allows, the freedom of movement for people and makes it much easier and stuff like that. So as a result, I do believe, it's a long answer, but I do believe that a lot of money that's been invested in gold is now going to start coming into Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin is gold 2.0. It's a better version of gold.
Digital gold.
It's a digital gold, right? So I think we will see Bitcoin rising, as this lady said. She said 1 billion.
Okay.
Imagine it just does 10% of that, or just 1% of that.
Yeah.
Do you understand? We're talking big numbers.
Yeah.
So I do think Bitcoin will actually, in fact, one of the things I was saying to the guys, I said, I wish this Bitcoin ETF doesn't get approved this round.
But it's not the first time they attempted this, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The reason why I'm saying I wish that it was not approved, I am being selfish. I'm not ready.
Okay.
I'm not ready. What do I mean by that?
Yeah.
I'm still, I earned a lot of Bitcoin. I spend a lot of Bitcoins. I want to accumulate more Bitcoins. So the higher the price of Bitcoin goes, the harder it is for ordinary people to accumulate Bitcoins.
That's true.
You understand?
That's true.
So we can be cheering on and say, hey, Bitcoin is going up. The question, how many Bitcoins do you have? In fact, my mentor used to ask that. When the price of Bitcoin goes down and we say, hey, but why is Bitcoin going down? He said, how many Bitcoins do you have? I've got not a lot. He said, then why do you want it to go up? You want it to go down so you can accumulate more. So that by the time you have got a lot, if it goes up, guess what happens? You become richer and richer and richer and richer and richer.
Yeah, that's true. But now there's just so many, how can I put this? There's so many like I want to call them opportunities. I actually had another word right now. The Bitcoin halving is coming up soon. Also this ETF thing.
Yeah.
So right now it's just like the focus is now Bitcoin.
Yes.
Sure. So now it's like, so should this thing happen now, it will probably just go up and never come down. And it will make it harder for the average person to acquire Bitcoin, correct?
Yes, but yes and no,
Okay.
right? Yes, in the sense that Bitcoin will keep on, going up and up and up. But at the very same time, there's only 6% of the human population that's involved in Bitcoin.
6.
Yes.
Okay.
The biggest thing that we drove was we wanted to actually increase that number before institutions get involved. Because we knew that institutions are going to drive the price of Bitcoin insanely high, and it's going to make it difficult for ordinary people. But at the very same time, having said that, it's impossible for everybody to own one full Bitcoin. So even if you own 0.005 of a Bitcoin, when the price of Bitcoin goes up, you are going to be better off, holding Bitcoin than holding anything else. So the argument that it's going to make it harder for people, yes, it's going to make it harder. It's going to make it harder for them to get to one full Bitcoin, but they can still accumulate. I helped somebody this morning buy Bitcoins for 500 rands. It's like 0. It sounds a bit insignificant, but imagine and one of the things I encourage that if nothing else you do, buy Bitcoins for 500 rand every single month. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you'll be in a very different place, than had you put that money into anything. Have you bought booze with that money? Had you given it to girls? Have you, did whatever? You understand? So you'll be in a far better place holding Bitcoin than any asset on the planet right now.
Sure. Still on this topic, I think I got this off of your social media right now. The world has over 2 billion people who do not have access to banking. This has tremendous effects for the poor. Crypto was created to bridge this gap, to provide alternative access for the masses, as it's too expensive for legacy banks to cater for everyone. Do you still think that crypto is still the gap?
I still do.
Okay.
That's an old post, man. I still do, right?
Yeah.
So let me explain it to you this way. In fact, one of the basic use cases of Bitcoin, right? Think of a guy who lives in the rural areas of Limpopo or Eastern Cape. This guy is now farming, right? Let's say there is a white man who goes, we've got beautiful beaches in the Eastern Cape, right? So they really literally untapped, right? So in some places. And we've got a lot of white tourists who actually go there every single year, to get these pristine beaches and stuff like that. Let's say somebody sees this particular young man who is manufacturing whatever. Let's say it's leather, sandals, whatever the case is, right? And they look at what this guy is making and they're thinking, you know what, I think this can sell where I come from. Let's say they happen to come from Germany, right? This guy has a cell phone. He doesn't have a bank. It's more difficult for you to open a bank than it is to actually open a Bitcoin wallet. Because the proliferation of smartphones right now, everybody has a smartphone, right? There's a lot more people with smartphones than there is people with actually access to banking. So those people can simply download a Bitcoin app for free, Bitcoin wallet for free. Now you want to sell to this guy, right? That particular gentleman can pay this particular guy for thousands of sandals using Bitcoin, right? So now all of a sudden, this guy is able to sell to someone who's in Germany. He doesn't even have a bank. Question is, what then does he do with the Bitcoins? How does he convert it into cash if you want to spend it? There is peer-to-peer exchanges where he can create an account, and then somebody wants to buy Bitcoin. They don't want to go and buy, via institution. They want to buy peer-to-peer, where he can literally name his price. Sometimes, because with peer-to-peer we can agree that, okay, I'll give you hard cash, but then I'm going to put a high markup because I'm taking the risk. But if I'm doing an EFT, maybe I'll put a small markup right, on the price of Bitcoin, the spot price of Bitcoin. So that's just one of the use cases, right? So, I mean, that person can now be able to send money to other relatives, I remember in 2017, I did a transaction with a lady in Botswana. So she was sending me back 48,000 rand. 48,000 rand. It took 4 days to get to my bank account. And on the 4th day, the bank calls me and say, look, there is this money, it's coming from Botswana. What is it for? I had to answer lots and lots of questions. And even after that, they sent me documentation for me to sign, 12 pages for 48,000 rand. With Bitcoin, it's borderless money. I can send Bitcoins to anyone, anywhere in the world at the fraction of the cost. And we're talking here literally seconds in terms of transaction time. So it not only would it make my business efficient, it will also make it easy for me to, how many people are living outside their home countries right now, who are working outside their home countries right now? How are they sending money home? Right now they're using other remittance services like Mukuru and many others. You know what's the minimum you get charged? It's 10% of the transaction.
Sure, that's
right.
A lot.
So with Bitcoin, you will spend like not even 1%. Of you sending this money, right? So in terms of the use case, that's just at the basic level. We're not talking about people becoming rich. We're just talking about people becoming efficient, right? Saving money, in terms of having to pay all the exorbitant fees with other, remittance merchants and stuff like that. So that's just some of the use cases of why Bitcoin. So I do still think that Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies bridge this gap in a way that banks cannot compete. Remember, the AML, the FICA, and all the requirements are actually making it burdensome for the banks to be able to bank the unbanked. So if I'm staying in the rural areas, you know that I don't have a street address, right? So it's impossible for me to get a proper FICA, a document that will be approved by the bank.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a street address, I don't stay at number 7 to something street, right? So, but then with Bitcoin, I can be able to open a non-custodial wallet that doesn't require any of that.
Sure. Hey, the future really is, I think you've made me a believer right now just from this conversation. But now let's talk about security, because I know security
I almost asked you what took you so long to be a believer.
No, actually, I transact in Bitcoin. I've seen it's actually quite cheap at transacting in Bitcoin, especially withdrawing from brokers and things like that. It's a no-brainer. When I started transacting in Bitcoin, I think I started 2021. When you look at the fees compared to fees for other services, especially e-wallets, online e-wallets and all that, it's crazy. It's just actually, this is where I'd rather be. So whenever I can, I try to utilize. But I'll admit, I'm not in a place where I'm transacting to keep the Bitcoin. Obviously, I'm just using it for transactions to get it to my bank account.
And that's good enough, by the way.
Yeah, but it's so easy right now, and it's so quick as well. I think that's the other part where I'm just guys, can we rather send it in Bitcoin? Leave all the other payment methods for real. But right now you've strengthened my belief.
I'm glad to hear.
Let's talk about security, because I know security is probably something a lot of people don't consider. A lot of people really, yes, we know there's cryptocurrency. A lot of people, we want to get a lot of people into crypto. Obviously, it's like you mentioned, it's the next digital, or it is the digital gold. But a lot of people, I think, don't really consider the fact of security. And I think obviously the people who I think you mentioned something earlier about there are people who are just going to be in this thing who don't really study it or whatnot, but they just use it. But for those people and for people who are also looking towards I think just to give a warning ahead of security, be like, okay guys, the security is also a big factor within crypto.
Okay. It is a huge factor, and ironically, it's actually what got me a lot more interested into Bitcoin, because I was like, why are all the scammers wanting to get these Bitcoins? And then I dug a little bit deeper in terms of what Bitcoin is, and I realized why. So a lot of people, that is why education, people want the lottery, mentality. People want, quick fixes. People, they don't want to study. I don't know why. If something has got the potential to change your life, I would assume that you would want to study, and understand, what this thing is all about. So you must understand Bitcoin is about freedom. It gives you freedom, right? But to him, much is given, much is required, So if you're going to be given freedom, you understand, you're also going to be required to be wise about how you utilize that particular freedom, okay? So a lot of people, let's say, for example, you're using an exchange, right? The money that is in your exchange, Bitcoin was about you becoming your own bank. That's one of the things. It was about you becoming your own bank, not necessarily using a third party, right? Okay. You can use a third party, but it also empowers you to be your own bank. Meaning, instead of your money sitting in a bank, it can sit in your own wallet, where only you have got access to it. Nobody can lock you out of your own wallet, right? You can put it in a hardware wallet if you want to. You can put it in a hot wallet, but then it's in your app, right? Even if somebody wants to rob you, they take your phone. Let's say you delete the app, you can always back up that app, on another device and still have got access to your money. Somebody takes your phone, they don't know how to access the money and stuff like that, and they ended up, let's say they wipe everything in your phone, you can still access your money because you can always back up your phrase, right? So how you store Bitcoin, there's two ways. You can either store it in a centralized exchange. The problem with that, it's your money, but it's not your money. The money in the bank is your money, but it's not your money. The bank can decide that they're actually going to lock you out and say, we're investigating. We think that there might be A, B, C, D, and E that you've done, whether you've done it or not, and how long the investigation takes, it's their prerogative, right? Unless you've got all the money in the world to then take them on and to lawyers and courts and stuff like that. So money in a bank is your money, but it's not your money. So centralized exchanges are like banks, right? So you can put your Bitcoins there, it's safe. Even if you lose your password, you can actually request them to send you a link to reset your password, but then it's not safe because somebody else can do that on your behalf. A lot of people actually they don't get hacked. They actually they lose their Bitcoins through phishing. Somebody sends you an SMS and say, your Luno account is going to be blocked if you don't do A, B, C, D, and E, and then they give you a link. If you don't understand how cyber crime actually work, you will click on that link and you put in your new password, whatever the case is. Guess what's happening? The person on the other hand, probably sitting somewhere in Hillbrow, I didn't say that, but sitting somewhere, they can then be able to actually access your account and withdraw the funds in there, right? Yeah. So we have to then be responsible and understand that you don't just click any link, right? I get so many of those links. I'm like, these people must not know who I am. Because I delete it as it comes, your Luno is going to be blocked, and I'm like, I just delete it, right? Because I don't even want my kid by any mistake, clicking on that link. I don't know what's going to happen, so I just delete it as it comes in. So that's one way of storing Bitcoin. The second way is through your own non-custodial wallet, which is an app you download for free. You can keep your Bitcoins there. The only thing is that if you don't have your backup phrase, because with a third party, the third party is responsible for your Bitcoins, right? But then should the third party go out of business, you've lost out. So that's the risk you're taking. But then you're also having the benefit that should you lose your password, whatever the case is, you can always say, guys, I'm looking for my Bitcoins, right? And they can help you out and stuff like that. But then when you have your old wallet, you are responsible. You better be responsible because if you lose your backup phrase, your coins are lost forever. Your coins are lost forever.
Yeah, I think I read a story about some guy who couldn't get into it, and I think he had about 100 Bitcoins.
Yeah.
Couldn't get into his
wallet.
His wallet.
Yeah. There's a lot of those because people back in the day, they didn't take it seriously. Remember, this was like monopoly money at the time.
Okay.
It was used for people who are playing games. Right now, my son talks about Robux, something like that. Right?
I think Roblox, something like that. Yeah.
So, they've got this internal token that they're using to do whatever, to buy skins and to, stuff in the game. So a lot of people were using Bitcoins. And probably this is why adoption took a little bit longer, is that it was all gamers and geeks and stuff like that. So people didn't really take it seriously. So up until more serious economical people actually got involved and say, wait a minute, this is actually something big. So I think that's what caused adoption to lag at the time, because it was all used by geeks and stuff like that. So people thought it might be just some of those things, right? But right now, I think if you are going to get involved in Bitcoin, there's a lot more. There's a lot to study. There's a lot to learn. And the unfortunate thing about today, learning about Bitcoin today, is that there's a lot of noise. By that I mean, if you go to YouTube right now and you want to learn about Bitcoin, guess what you're going to see first? How this particular coin is going to give you 1000x. You know, how this particular coin is, I call them the moon boys, right? This coin is going to go to the moon. You're going to buy a Lamborghini and stuff like that, right? And people then get swayed into that, you know. And yes, these coins do that, but at the very same time, they do go to zero, you know. So if you're not a trader, you don't know what you're doing. I often say to people, if you're not going to be full-time in this thing, don't bother buying other coins. Just buy Bitcoins. You are going to be safe. Nobody has actually become poorer by simply focusing on Bitcoin over a long term. Nobody. They've all become rich. Whereas other people have actually made and lost money. You understand?
Yeah.
So it's yes, every asset is speculation, but I think all the other altcoins are a much bigger speculation. If you don't understand the fundamentals of what is this particular token, what problem is it solving, how big is that problem, who else is trying to solve that problem, you know, who is doing a better job at solving that particular problem. So if you're not willing to do all those research, then don't touch other stuff. Just buy Bitcoins. You're going to be fine.
Yeah, I like the fact that you've kind of brought in other coins into the conversation, because I was going to ask you about meme coins. I saw a couple of days back you posted that, hey, this is a game that you're actually going to partake in now when coming to meme coins. So what are meme coins and why the sudden interest?
So meme coins, ironically, are a joke against Bitcoin.
Okay.
A joke against the entire cryptocurrency market. That's how they started, with Dogecoin. So even the guy who actually created Dogecoin, he created Dogecoin. This was supposed to be a meme. It was supposed to be funny, and then he left it. You know, he just left the protocol and everything. You know, but so hype is something that is very, very important in crypto. So somebody can just go ahead and say, there's X amount of this particular coins. So how many wallets are holding this particular coins? Buy this particular coin and then go and start a Dogecoin community and say, guys, let's buy Doge. You know, we can change the world with Doge. If you get a lot of people believing and buying that coin, remember you bought first, right? So what's going to happen to the price? If you get a lot more people coming into the space, the price is actually going to go up. So what traders are actually doing in crypto? So unlike Forex, where you have to look at the market, and here they can actually make the market, right? Because it's such a small market cap. You know, people can come and say, let's actually buy Shiba Inu, for an example. You know, and then they buy Shiba Inu, they create hype about Shiba Inu and stuff like that. They can even create other products for Shiba Inu. Right? They create merch. They can create, let's say, decentralized exchanges and stuff, because it doesn't cost a lot to create those, right? So, and then they rile people up into, this is going to be the next big thing. And guess what's going to happen? People who don't know what they don't know, they will say, I missed out on Bitcoin. Let me get on this because I missed out on Bitcoin. I should have bought it when it was this particular price. Now look at this. You know, with 1,000 rand, I will get like a 0.0 something of a Bitcoin. But with 1,000 rand, I can get a billion Shiba Inu. And people think because of the number of coins, then they'll actually get to make it if this thing goes up. It doesn't work that way, right? Okay. Because yes, it might go up. It has created millionaires. I don't want to lie. People have made lots of money in meme coins, but it's a huge gamble, because when they start dumping, because there's no utility behind it, there is no flow. It just go down, 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 and that's it, right? Unless it waits for another hype cycle, you just never know. It can wait for another hype cycle whereby somebody decide, let's go and promote this particular coin, right? And they build a community around it, and then the price can go up. So that is why I use the word gamble. I said I'm going to gamble, because it's actually nothing but gambling. in my view. And like any other gambling, you can make money and you can lose money, right? Even if you hold for long term.
Yeah, that's true. Sure. Yo, you know, again, I'm going to quote you again. Cryptocurrencies are here to stay, and they are the future of money and related services. Are we living in that future?
100%.
And if so, are we living in that future? But also, how far along in that future are we?
Here is the interesting thing about the space, right? As I said, if you ever fancied yourself, having millions and millions and millions of dollars, again, I say cryptocurrency is a space where you might want to be. Not necessarily as a person who buys and holds or trades, even though both of the people get to make money. But the people who get to make a lot more money is the one who take commercial risk and actually creates products. So one of the things I learned back in the day coming into the space was you have this highway and it's cryptocurrencies. You've got fiat, your rand, your dollar, your British pound, your Chinese yen. So they are running parallel. The people who then actually build bridges within these two highways, whether it's wallets like Luno and exchanges and stuff like that, right? The people who then build bridges where they allow these two worlds to intersect and actually charge people for using that particular bridge, those are the people who get to make money. One of the world's richest people right now is a guy by the name of CZ who created Binance, right? He's one of the richest people in a space of 4 years. That's crypto, right? So yes, we are living in that future because you have Bitcoin, which solidified the fact that we can have money that's not owned or controlled by any bank or by any government. But then with that, it actually created a spark to say, hang on, if we can create a form of money, we can then create other financial services using the same technology called blockchain technology, right? Where we've got financial services where there are no gatekeepers. For example, if I want to borrow money right now in South Africa in any financial institution, what will they require? Proof of address, my credit record, proof of income, and all those things. In what is called decentralized finance, which is the next iteration of this blockchain technology, decentralized finance, they don't even have to know if I'm a human for me to be able to borrow money, let alone proof of address, let alone credit record, let alone all those things, right? If I have collateral, because everything is based on a smart contract, if I've got collateral, because it is collateralized lending, right? So if I'm able to put in 1 Bitcoin and then I'm able to borrow whatever that I need to borrow, everything is on a smart contract. The minute, the price of whatever asset that I've borrowed or the price of the asset that I've put up for security actually goes down, it will notify me to say, look, we're actually going to make a margin call right now because this is the gap. You need to either top up or actually cancel the contract. If I don't do anything, the contract will auto cancel, right? So it will auto cancel and it will deduct whatever money I owe them according to the agreement. And then my money is back into my wallet, right? That's decentralized finance. No ID, no proof of address, none of the things that are required. You understand? So in other words, it democratizes and makes access to financial services a lot more freer than what it is with the fiat world. So that's just decentralized. And I just give an example with lending. We can talk insurance, right? We can talk everything you can think of in the real world in terms of any financial service you can think of, you can actually find it in the cryptocurrency space, right? But it's still in its infancy. Right now, the market cap of cryptocurrency is sitting at $1.7 trillion. I can tell you right now, you can quote me on this a few years from now, that is going to go to $10 trillion at some point. I might not have the silver, the crystal ball to tell you on this particular date it will go to 10 trillion. I can tell you it will go to 10 trillion. It's just a matter of time. Because we're talking not only that, now we're talking tokenized railroad assets. That's the whole new ball game altogether. So again, leave meme coins. Focus on what's real. You understand? How is this changing the world? You understand? And get involved in that. You know, how did Elon Musk become one of the world's richest people on the planet? He knew where the world was going. The world was going, we want clean energy. We actually want to use less and less fossil fuels, as they call them. And then he created Tesla. Actually, didn't create Tesla. He actually bought into Tesla, partnered with the guys who created Tesla, right? And he made Tesla what it is today. You understand? He knew where the world was going. As I often say in my presentation, that today is really rich. It's very easy to be rich. Why? You just simply need to identify a trend and position yourself on the right side of that particular trend. You can literally become rich. Again, I know I'm going off a tangent here. There's a guy who's a billionaire. He didn't even start one business. He actually only backed up one entrepreneur only.
Okay.
And that's Elon Musk. This guy is in Singapore. You can Google this. This guy is now a billionaire. He was one of the first investors who bought in the Tesla IPO and has been plowing money into Tesla. Look at what Tesla stock has done from day one up until today. That guy is now a billionaire. He hasn't built a company.
Sure.
It's identifying a trend, positioning yourself on the right side of that particular trend. And I'm telling you right now, everything is going on a blockchain. Everything.
Yeah. Let's talk about the blockchain. That's where I was going, actually.
Sure.
Yeah. So can you explain to us what the blockchain really is, truly really is? Because I know, I always hear, obviously, crypto. Yeah, then obviously after you hear crypto, it's Bitcoin. Then after Bitcoin, it's blockchain, those kind of things. But can you explain to us what is the blockchain? Is it something that, because I know at some point, I know this is funny, some guy, we both know him, he wanted to create his own chain. Is that even possible as well? Is that the purpose of a blockchain as well? So yeah, can you just give us a bit of background in regards to that?
Anybody, see, the thing about technology is that Satoshi Nakamoto intentionally created the Bitcoin blockchain to be open source. Okay. What does that mean? It means that anybody can see the code, copy the code, and modify the code if they want to, right? But then, people have been creating cryptocurrencies like forever. People have been creating crypto. There's over 22,000 cryptocurrencies. Yeah. How many of those have failed? How many of those have got no value, no utility, no nothing, right? So the fact that it's a cryptocurrency, the fact that it's using blockchain doesn't necessarily mean much, right? It has to go a step further. It has to have utility. It has to solve a real life problem that people have got a need for. Then, people want to use that. Then you've got what is called network effect, right? The reason why no currency right now can compete with Bitcoin is because there is no currency in the world where it has got resources flowing into it like Bitcoin. There's a lot more money flowing into Bitcoin than any other asset class right now in terms of resources, manpower. People are leaving Wall Street to go and work on Bitcoin, right? Jack Dorsey, the founder, the original creator of Twitter, he sold Twitter to do what? To go, before even selling Twitter, he stepped down as a CEO to go and focus on building Bitcoin. So let's come back to blockchain. So Satoshi Nakamoto was actually smart. By the way, Satoshi Nakamoto is the anonymous author who created Bitcoin, right? Yeah. We don't know if it's one person or it's three people. There's all sorts of speculations on who it might be. There's actually even a guy who said, I am Satoshi Nakamoto, and he has been called out to be fake. We don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, and we don't want to know.
Apparently, just recently now, about $1 million worth of Bitcoin are sent to that wallet.
It's going to be interesting how that unfolds.
Okay.
So somebody is trying to expose who Satoshi Nakamoto is. I don't know how that unfolds, right?
Yeah.
So they explain this legal jargon where Satoshi Nakamoto will have to dox themselves and stuff like that. Doxing means that to reveal yourself. I don't think it's going to happen. Because there's a reason why Satoshi Nakamoto went into hiding for all these years, right? There's a reason why he did that, and if he did not do that, we would have found fault with him. We would have said, but he has 3 kids instead of 2.5. We would have said, but he actually slept with this. But they would have found something to discredit him.
Sure.
The fact that it's a mysterious character actually adds to the intrigue of Bitcoin. So one of the biggest gifts he gave us is for us to leave the scene. That was one of the biggest gifts that he gave us. Yeah. Right. Right now, there's memes about Vitalik Buterin, who's the creator of Ethereum. Very, very smart and intelligent guy, but he's a geek. People look at him wearing T-shirts. I mean, he's an adult, but he would wear a T-shirt with a unicorn on it. So people will make jokes and say, I mean, you're telling me all my net worth is sitting with this particular guy? It's not necessarily sitting with him, but he's one of the core developers, right? So they make strategic decision of how the chain actually goes forward.
Okay.
So, but let's come to blockchain. So
Yes.
blockchain technology is simply a ledger, right? Every company has got an internal ledger that only a few people can see. If you go to the bank, they've got an internal ledger. And even how far you can see depends on your seniority in the bank, right? Even some of the guys who are very, very senior don't necessarily understand what goes on behind the scenes, right? The same with the Reserve Bank and stuff like that. So blockchain is simply a ledger, but this particular ledger, not one person gets to update. There has to be a consensus on how it's updated, right? So that is why you have miners. So what miners do, miners actually update this particular ledger using their computing power. How do they do this? So with the Bitcoin blockchain, every 10 minutes, all the transactions, you were buying coffee, somebody was buying something, all the transactions that happen in that particular 10 minutes, right? They are grouped together in what is called a transaction block. So the miners then compete to verify these particular transactions. You know, what does verifying mean? Okay, so money was coming from this particular wallet, is going to this particular wallet. There is no double spend. It's really gone from this wallet. It's really credited to this wallet. And then those transactions are then locked and timestamped into the blockchain. And once they're there forever. That is why people will often tell you that it's one of the dumbest things for people to want to be criminal and want to use Bitcoin.
Okay.
Because unlike fiat, unlike cash, Bitcoin transactions are actually recorded and they're there forever, forever. So they can all be traced back, at some point. There's companies specializing on this. So blockchain technology is simply a ledger that records all the transactions. But what makes it interesting is the fact that it is decentralized. No one person has got one full copy or the original copy, because there isn't. So even if today, the reason why nobody could destroy Bitcoin is that even if you were to go, you take all the Bitcoin miners and destroy their computers and stuff like that, this thing exists on the internet. Right, somebody can just simply, set up their hardware, plug into the Bitcoin core, and they're able to run, with the Bitcoin code. In fact, there's a company called I just forgot the name. This guys actually shot, Elon Musk shot a roadster into space, right, into orbit.
Okay.
This guys actually did the same for Bitcoin mining. They shot a Bitcoin mining machine into space, so that even if here we can try and do whatever to fight Bitcoins, we can never get rid of Bitcoin. Never get rid of Bitcoin, right? So because this ledger is somewhere and everywhere, all at the same time, right? So all other cryptocurrencies are copying and mimicking that particular ledger.
Okay.
So what they do is that you'll find that some are faster than Bitcoin. They will allow more transactions than Bitcoin per block. Some will actually have a smaller time frame per block and allow more transactions per block. So that's the difference with, and some actually allow for a lot more applications to be built on that particular blockchain. Case in point being Ethereum. So Ethereum was not built to be money. We can use it as money, but it was not built to be money.
Okay.
It was built to be a platform that allows all other dApps being decentralized applications. So if I want to create a dApp for lending, I can create it on the Ethereum blockchain. So if I want to create a dApp for automated market maker, I can create it on the Ethereum blockchain, right? Whereby the Ethereum, what we call Ethereum is actually Ether, the currency that is used as gas on that particular blockchain, right? So what we call Bitcoin is actually the token that is created for transacting on that particular blockchain, right? So with the Ethereum blockchain, it's done in such a way that you can actually build. Microsoft is using the Ethereum blockchain. It's one of the companies. There's many others using the Ethereum blockchain. And with that, others will say, okay, but there are inefficiencies with this particular blockchain, and it seems like the team is not interested in solving it this particular way, and we think it can be solved this particular way. This is then what then causes other tokens to be created.
Okay.
For example, like the Solana blockchain. They say, okay, these are the shortcomings with the Ethereum blockchain, and we think we can solve them this way or that way or that way. When there is no agreement between some of the developers, some of them will go and actually create their own. So if they can convince other people that we're actually doing a better job and other people invest into it, and of course, there will be greed coming into it, right? I invest because I want to make money, and nothing wrong with that, right? So as long as I believe that these guys can actually do a better job, and I can fund these guys doing this particular job, and if they get it right, I get to win. If I get it wrong, I lose my money. It's okay. Life goes on. So that's the blockchain, and there's many variations of what this particular blockchain actually does. But the key thing is that it has to be decentralized. In other words, there is no one person that controls it. There has to be a network of miners and nodes all over the world that are working independently and are actually keeping each other in check. So there is no incentive to cheat, in any way or form. Because the economic cost of you actually cheating the blockchain far outweighs the benefit you can get from cheating.
Sure.
No
rand manipulation this side.
No. Look, there is manipulation in terms of price. It can be. What they cannot manipulate is that transaction themselves, right? But in terms of pricing, we've seen manipulation. We've seen manipulation.
I guess it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Sure. I want to keep talking, but yes. We've been at it. But before NFTs, before I let you go, what happened to NFTs? Are they still... Oh, what's the conversation there?
Okay. So as with all emerging technologies, right, as I said, Bitcoin at some point dropped 90% in value.
Okay.
Right now, it's impossible for Bitcoin to drop 90% in value. It has matured.
Okay.
So NFTs... as a technology, they're not going away.
Okay.
They're not going away. They are going to be used for a lot more stuff. It's just that it was a hype cycle, right? So just like, as I said, Bitcoin dropped 90% in value, sometimes more than 90%. That's what has happened to the NFT market. But there is still people using NFTs. NFTs have got a great use case. Forget the hype. Somebody, buying, and then this thing goes to the moon and then it comes down and stuff like that. But in terms of the use case, NFTs are not going anywhere. Okay. For example, right now, dealing with attorneys who are specializing on tokenizing real world assets, meaning you can tokenize land, you can tokenize this building, you can tokenize anything, you can tokenize a car, you can tokenize almost anything. But then how you then create a token, you can create it in a way that it's like a coin, or you can actually create it in a way that it can be represented in the form of the NFT. Right, so NFT is a non-fungible token. It can be used for art, it can be used for music, it can be used for videos, it can be used for land, it can be used for birth certificates, it can be used for a lot of things, because it's a piece of art that actually has got data in it. It's the data that's important more than the art. A lot of people think it's just the art. No, it's not the art. That is why the Bored Apes were not necessarily the nicest drawings you can find.
Yeah, true.
It was not about the art itself. It was actually about the metadata, meaning the data behind the art. And there's a lot of stuff you can basically store in there. You can store rights of the land. Like, for example, in a title deed, right, they will normally stipulate what we can do, what we cannot do. One of the things that they stipulate there is that even if you own this farm, should you find gold, it's not yours, it belongs to the government. That's one of the things that they stipulate in the title deed. So they can do the same on an NFT. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much. No, this was such an illuminating conversation, honestly. I think, especially for the people watching, even for myself right now, I've learned so much, and thank you for just coming to give. And I don't know if I said this to you, I always have pre-calls with everyone I interview, but the main aim of these interviews is to change someone's life, even if it's just one person, but we know it'll probably be a few thousand people. Sure. But thank you so much, Mr. Fololo. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your knowledge that you've poured out today. And I hope this is not the last time. I hope in the future we can still sit down again and talk about the 10 trillion market cap of crypto. I'd really appreciate that. And thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is another installment of Market Masters with myself, Nqobile Tembane from Top Traders South Africa. And I'll see you guys in the next episode, same time, same place next week.